believe everyone is hearing me now, right? Can everyone hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right. So let's run. So in last class we tried to do introduction to design systems. So we tried to create our typography systems. We tried to create our color systems. You understand? We generally understood how layer guides, work and how it helps us, maintain continuity in our designs. Now we've equally discussed, components and the basic idea between components and how components work. So in today's class, we are going to be discussing interactive components. Now, what do I mean by interactive components? Interactive components is when we add interactions to our component to, create smooth transitions between our work. So interactive components is like a feature in Figma that helps us reduce the number of frames we have while prototyping. For instance, imagine that I want to, create a checkbox. You understand? Normally, with our normal knowledge of how Figma works, creating a checkbox will look something like this. If I have a box like this, right?
You cannot see your screen, right?
Oh wow!
Are you sharing?
Sorry, let me just share my screen now, please. A tab that should be Figma. Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Alright, so creating a checkbox now will look like I just created this frame. Then I want to create a checkbox. So it will look like something like this. Probably this will be in outline. Outline. I'll remove the fill. I'll add an outline here. Probably make this outline blue. And then make this outline thicker. And then this blue. Make this blue, right? Probably I might just want to curve the edges like this. Since I'm working with a big frame, so I've curved this. So if I want to prototype this now, normally, like I want to create a checkbox. No, this is now the first state of this box. That means I need to create another state where the box is checked. You understand? So what I have to now do now is probably I'll duplicate this, right? So I'll select everything and then I'll duplicate it. Now, having duplicated it, probably what I will now do to show that it's checked is probably I'll have another box inside of it, like this. So this box now I'll change it from outline to a fill color. So I'll choose this fill color, right? So now I've shown the two states that this box is going to exist. So now if I want to now run a prototype to say that, okay, this box is checked, what I will now do is probably I'll come to this frame and then I'll come to prototype and I'll say add interactions. Now if I click on this frame, move to this other frame, I can say navigate. Then here I'll change to smart animate, right? Then probably if I want it to be a continuous action, I could say, okay, if I click on this second frame now, probably I should just shift this so you can see the arrows. So if I want it to be like a repeated process, I could just come back to this frame and say if I click on this frame, I'll take it should go back to this frame. You understand? Then I can retain the settings here already. So I've been able to create a basic interaction of a checkbox. So now if I'm to play this, if I press play, it will load up the prototype. So let's see how it works. So now this is what we just designed. So based on the interaction we added, it means that if I click here now, it shows this checkbox. That should show that this is checked. If I click on it, it goes back again. If I click, it checks. Then if I click on it, it goes back again. Now this is the basic ideology behind prototyping, and I believe we already understand this because this is basically what we did in last class. Now coming back to this and relating it to what we have in today's class. Now, does it mean that anytime I want to create something like this, I have to keep on creating frames and duplicating? Now, you can imagine the number of frames we are going to have in just one single project, like, because we want everything to be clickable. So if I have a button that I want to show different states of that button, I have to create like different frames. You understand? Okay, if I create like different frames, how do I now relate it to like my main work? You understand? How do I connect all those things to my main work? So you find out that it's not like it's not possible, but it's going to take a lot of time and, you know, a lot of brain work and a lot of stress, you know, to put together. So that's where interactive components now come in. So interactive components helps us reduce the number of frames we have, you understand, and it helps us create stuffs in different states, you understand, easily. Okay, variants helps us create stuffs in different states. When I mean stuffs, I mean your buttons, probably, you know, anything you want to do. So far you want to represent it in different states. What I mean by different states is, okay, this state 1 now is when the button is at the first state. State 2, probably when the user wants to hover on it. State 3 is probably when I want to use it to show a success message or something. So those are different states that a particular button can exist on. So when we are trying to show different states of a particular component, you understand, we use variants. Now when we add interactions to these variants, now we try to create what we call interactive components, or interactive. When you try to add interactions to components, you create what we call interactive components. Now let's see how this works, you know, and let's see how we can use it to create different things on our workflow. So first of all, I'm going to explain how we can use this thing to create our button system. So ladies and gentlemen, follow me closely, you know. So let's run. So now what I'm going to do, let me just delete this. Now let's create our buttons. Now first of all, usually when I want to, you know, it's still part of your developing your design system, develop our button system. Now how I usually like doing mine is I usually like creating it with auto layout first, starting out with auto layout, but you can do it whichever way you want, but I usually like working with auto layout when I'm trying to create my button systems. So first of all, I'll type in something and I'll say button here. Yeah, just button here is okay. Sorry. So I've typed out. So I'm assuming that this is a button. Why I said button here is that you can change this to probably be login, registration, whatever thing. But let's just use button here. You know, you can always change it to whatever thing you want to, depending on which page you are on. So now, having done this, I'm going to select this and I'll convert this to auto layout. I'll convert this to an auto layout. So to do that now, I can just right click here. If I right click, you will see create auto layout or something. Add auto layout. The shortcut is Shift A. So now you can see that this button has changed to a frame in my layers panel here. Now what I want to do, because it's a button that I want to create from this, what I want to do is on this particular frame one, I'll just add a fill to it, right? I'll add a fill. Now I will change the color of the field to probably, you know, blue, and then I'll double click on it to change the color of the text to white, so it's readable. Now I don't usually like working with sharp edges, so I'll curve the roundness of the button to probably 10 or 4. Now I'm okay with this. Now ladies and gentlemen, I want this button to exist in like 3 different states. Now this will be the default. Now I want it to exist in a rounded in all-rounded states, and then I want it to exist which other states? I want it to exist in an outline state, right? This default state, let me just type it down. Default states, all-rounded states. So you can, based on what you're working on, you can determine any kind of state. You can call it any kind of thing. I just outline states. Usually I used to call my outline states secondary states. Now under default states, I want to have like the default state, which is what the button is. You understand? I want to have hover state. I want to have the hover state. I want to have the disabled state. I want to have the disabled states. Which other states can we have? Probably the danger states. Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me?
Yes, we're together.
Now see what I mean. So I'll just change this from bold to regular. So see what I mean. I want this button to exist in 3 different states. 1 is the default state, 2 is the all-rounded state, and 3 is the outline state. Now under the default state, I want to have the primary state, which is the original default. Then I want to have a hover state. That means if you hover on this button now, it will take this action. Then I want to have the disabled state. Do you understand? The disabled state is okay, this button is not active. Then I want to have the danger state. Danger state is probably, we are going to use a red color to show that okay, probably there is an error message or something like that. So that's like the state we want, the sub-state we want to have under default. And this sub-state, we're equally going to have it for the all-rounded state, and we're equally going to have it for the outline state. So how can we inculcate all these different states now that we want to have in one button without having like different number of frames for all of them? Because if you want to create it normally now with frames, you are going to like have a frame, in that frame you have the hover state, you have another frame, in that frame now you have probably the disabled state. But how can we put all these different states in one button? Now that is where variants come in. So now I have this button now that I've created. This is my default state. Let me just call this hover state. It should be, there should be something like selected state or something like that. Now you might be wondering, okay, how do I know all these states? That, like, where am I bringing these states from? I think you just need to know them because, like, you use websites now, you use platforms. You understand? Or most times when you're designing, you actually find out that okay, this button now, I want to have an effect like okay, if you hover on it, it will change color, and then I want to have like a secondary button where if I want to show like another button that is supposed to be there but it's not really the main button, those are, so from there now you can now decide to name them. Sometimes I use main button, primary button, secondary button, tertiary button. It does not really matter, you can name them, but just be able to understand how to document different states that you want your button to exist on. That's what matters. So now let's proceed. So now I have this button now. So now to be able to have variants, components variants, right, you must be able to have a component first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this button that I've created, and then I'll convert it to a component. To convert to a component, you see this icon here, or you can right click and then you say create component. It will create it, so it has converted as a component. Now to be able to develop variants from this component, so for a variant simply means like okay, a second part of something. So it's either something is white or is black. So I can actually say that black is a variant of white. Do you understand? So a second state of something. So to add variants now to this button, I already have this component. To add variants to this button now, if you come, you see something like a diamond that has a plus icon, on it. So once I click on it, I think it's from the recent updates, from ever since Figma made its recent update. That's when this button started being here. Usually it used to be here, but I think it's like that on everybody's screen as at now. So, but if you've not updated your Figma, just check around this part. You still see the variant option once you have a component. So this diamond icon with a plus sign inside of it, once you click on it, it will add a variant. So adding a variant is just like creating a second part of that thing. So you can now decide to change it and all of those. Now this is where the brain work starts. So now let's start doing the brain work. Now basically how variants work is you have a property, and inside that property now we have different variants. Ladies and gentlemen, if you understand this thing I just said now, you've understood variants. Now you have a property. Now inside that property you have different variants. Now it simply means that I can have as many properties as I like. You understand? But inside that property now I'll have like different variants. Am I communicating, guys? Do we understand?
Just repeat yourself, please.
Basically what I'm saying is how variants work is that you have a property. Then inside that property now we have different variants. So for instance now we have which example will I give now? What looks alike? What looks alike? Okay, we have a bottle of I'm sure we can imagine a crate bottle. That's a crate that contains bottles, like mineral bottle, right? Can we all imagine that, like those crates that we use in putting different bottles now? Now I'm not talking about the can mineral, because those ones come with like waterproof. I'm talking about the crate itself. Can you guys imagine that?
Yes.
Now we have that crate now. In that crate now, usually they used to write it the brand, either Coca-Cola, Fanta or 7-Up, but usually Coca-Cola. Now that is the property, that is the main thing. But that crate now can house different bottles of Coca-Cola. Now it's not just that it can house different bottles of Coca-Cola, it can house probably a Coke, it can house Fanta, it can house Sprite, but it's the same crate. But it has variants of Coca-Cola products inside of it. Can we imagine that? Normally the crate used to accommodate like 24. So I can have like 6 bottles of Coke, 6 bottles of Fanta, 6 bottles of Sprite inside that crate, and it's holding it as one. Do you understand? So if you keep that crate now and say, okay, hey, you go and pick a bottle, somebody can just come here and decide to pick Sprite. Somebody can just come here and decide to pick Fanta, but it is housed by that crate. Do we understand?
Yes.
Now that same ideology now is what backs variants. So variants now, how it works is that there is a property. Now inside that property now we have different variants. Now let's see that there is a state, or there is a property now. Then inside that property now we have different states. Now what do I mean? Let me just show it to you guys. Now this button was 1. The moment we added a variant, it became 2. Now if you come by your right hand side here where my mouse is, you will see something like current variant. Now it's showing me property 1, and another property 1 is showing me variant 2. Meaning if I click on this drop down icon, I'll be able to see the default, which is this first button I had, and then the variant, which is the second button I added. Do we understand? And these 2 variants now, that's the default and the variant now, is under property 1. Do we understand?
Yes, I go with you.
Now let's move forward. Now this property 1 now, I can decide to name it whatever I want. In this case now, I want to name it this default state there. I will change you because confusing me somehow. I'll change it to primary state. Let's use primary because that's what I always use. So I'll change it to primary state. So now what I'll do now is this property 1 here. For us to understand it well, I can change it from that I can change it from property 1 to probably, primary state, so we can understand very well. So when I click on this edit button, it brings up this stuff. I can now name it primary state. So we can, and the moment I click on primary state, is now here. Now I can equally rename the variants. I can rename the variants. So if I click on this now, you will see if I select this one now, it is default. But probably I'll just leave it as default. Then this other one now is now I want stable state and a danger state, right? So what I'll do is I'll click on this mainframe, then I'll use my mouse and make this bigger, so I'll have those different states. Now to make this more easy for us to understand, I'll put this in the same line, so everything will be on the same line. So I'll bring this here. Now this is hover state. Now in this variant 2 now, I will change the settings to that state I want it to be on. In this case, I want it to be in the hover state. Now, how will the hover state work? The hover state will work by just me changing the color of this button to show that, okay, just make it a little bit different from the main button. That's just what it is. So I'll just click on this color and then probably I just make it something lighter, so that it will be obvious that when the mouse hovers on this, a color changes. You understand? Your own might be mouse hover change to outline. It's you that will determine. You understand? But you just see how it's just going to keep growing, because aside from this, aside from having primary, all-rounded and outline states, I'll now come and have hover states. I'll now have hover states with button, hover states without button. You understand? Disable state with button, disable state without button. If you're working with emoji, you can have disable hover state with emoji, hover state without emoji. Am I communicating, guys? So it's now you that will be determining different kinds of button you are using on you are going to use on your design, and you just add it to your button system. Am I communicating, guys? This one, everybody's keeping quiet. It's like I'm not communicating. No. I'm not communicating, ba.
You're communicating.
Go ahead. Catch up.
Anyway, let's just be going slowly. But I just want you guys to get the idea. You understand? What I'm just trying to say is, once you get the basic idea, you can go ahead and create as many buttons as you so wish. You understand? Okay, depending on what you're working on. Okay, I just want you guys to know that it does not have any limit. You can create and uncreate. Once you know how to do something, just like you know how to recite ABCD. You can start from Z, Y, blah 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 blah, and come back to A, or you can start from A and you can be interchanging it, because you already know how to do it very very well. That's just what I'm trying to explain. But this is the basic. This is how it just works. So now this is the hover state. Now one thing you need to know while trying to create your variants is you cannot repeat names. So for instance, now that I've called this probably, okay, now this is still variant 2. I cannot have another variant and it will still be named variant 2. Figma will automatically notify you that these two variants have the same name, that you should change the name. You understand? Because that is how it works. It works by layer naming. So you have to have different names for different variants. So I think you guys will see that as we proceed. So now I've changed the state of this to hover state. So what I can do now is I can just come here and probably rename it to hover. How did I rename it to hover? You have to click on that particular object or that particular button or on that particular component that you want to change the name. Then you now come to this section and you then change the name. If I want to change the name of this one now, I can click on it. You see it's showing default. I can click on it and change it to primary, but let me just leave it at default. Now the next state that we want to create under the primary state is the disabled state, right? So the disabled state now, I'll click on this button and I'll press Ctrl D. Ctrl D is to duplicate. Now this disable state, now we just want to show that this button now is not active, right? So what I'll do is I'll change the fill from to something gray, or yeah, something dark gray or something, you know. So I've shown that okay, this button is not, probably this the text, I'll change it to something gray as well, not white or something. Let's just bring it down. Yeah, so it will show that it's not active as well. So now I can click on this button and come to my variant and change it to, instead of it being primary state 3, I'll call it disabled state. Disabled, right? Enter. Now, which other state do we want to create? We want to create danger state. So I'll click on this button now and just press Ctrl D to duplicate it. Now, let me just move this a little. Now I'll click on this button and then just change the color to probably red. You know, let's make it red, right? Let's just make it that simple. And then the text, I'll change it to white. White. Now I've been able to show the different states that this button is going to exist in. Now to further you know, make it more easier for us to understand, so you guys will see what we just did here. Now if I come to my assets panel is just beside your layer panel. If I come to my assets panel now, you will see the buttons we've created. All the components you've created is being documented under your assets panel. Those are the assets. Now if I come here and I click and I drag this thing out, you know, you can see that this is one button, but I can actually toggle the different states of this button. So if I come here now, I can toggle from this panel, I can change this to hover, you know, change this to disabled, change it to primary state with just one button. So if I come to my layers and probably locate our high fidelity work, I think this is what we are working on. So I have like all this number of pages now on my screen. You know, I can just come to my assets panel just with one button. I can put one button on all the pages. I can just use one button on all the pages. So all I'll just be doing is, once I come to that page, I already know the button that will be relevant in this page, and then I'll just change the state of this button. Ouch, Control C. So once I come to this page, I already know that okay, this button is relevant here. Probably I don't want the default. Probably I want here to be disabled. You know, I can switch to disable state. I want here to be hover button. I can switch to the hover button. Do we understand? I'm just controlling this with just one button. Do we understand?
Please, can you repeat it again?
Don't understand it.
Okay, I should start afresh.
I'm lost here.
Okay, well, sorry. Let's go back again. Let's come back. Okay, if this is just the only thing we'll do, that's fine. Let's come back here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are still trying to do, you know, designs, how to create our design systems. Now, in the previous class, we learned how to create our typography system, because we will always work with fonts and typefaces. So we learned how to create that system. We equally learned how to create color systems, because obviously you will always work with colors. How do you document your colors? We've learned those ones. Now what I'm trying to teach in today's class is how to create your button system. But while talking about buttons, we equally talk about interactive components, because buttons are what the users use in communicating with our interface. So buttons are the things they are pressing. So for instance, I press a button now, a drop down menu comes out. How do I create it? Interactive component. Does this thing I'm trying to teach you guys now. That's how we create it. But I'm coming from the basic, you know, side of it. So we understand the basic functionality, how it works basically. So from there now you can build whatever thing you want to build. Now what did I say? Let me come again. I said we want to build a button that we have these different states: primary states, all-rounded states, and outline states. What do I mean by all-rounded state? All-rounded state is that this button now, I'll copy this button to 100. So all the sides are curved. So if this button is curved 100 like this, now this is the all-rounded state. Now I want to have a button that will exist in these different states. So I will undo this. So now that is what we are trying to create. So how do we do that? First of all, we are working for the primary state. So this one's now we did now is the primary one. Now under the primary one, we have under the primary button. I think I should be using primary button. Under the primary button, we have different states. We have the hover state, we have the disabled state, we have the danger state. You can have as many states as you like. Do you understand? You can have hover state with icon, hover state without icon, disabled state with icon, disabled state without icon. Do you understand? You can have as many. Okay, let me get a standard button system for us, so we see. Probably because we are not seeing how it looks like. I have one here. Let me just copy it. Ouch. Control Z. Let me just copy it so you guys see how this where we are heading to. Control C. I have to bring it inside. Control G. So now guys, this thing now is like a button system. Now you can see that it's existing in different states. It's existing in different states. Probably I should just zoom in so you guys can see. Now this one now is existing in different states. It's existing in the first state, hover state, focus state, disabled state, and it's existing in probably extra small, medium small, base size, large, extra large. Are you guys seeing it? So different button sizes, you understand? That's what is existing on. So you can see like the different states. So usually when you're trying to create your button systems, you're now supposed to like check, okay, in this project now, what are the different states of button I'll be working on? You understand? So from there, you first of all you create your button so that you don't come and like you're working on a design, like on a particular page. Instead of you to be thinking of like the concepts, you're thinking of how the button will look like. You've already predefined everything from the onset. So you are just switching between different states. Do you guys understand?
Yes.
So I can continue back.
Yes, you can continue.
Alright. So now you can actually decide to create like different states. So in this particular one, they have the main states they have is the linked state, the outline, the fill. You understand? Then under it, they now have different sizes: small, medium, large. You know, and that's why it's this big. You understand? So but most times I don't usually like having like different sizes. I just have like size for my mobile app size, and then my web platform app size. Usually that's the one I use. But if you work in a project where you have to show like different sizes, probably for mobile, desktop, tablet, what do you call it, wristwatch, you know, then it's the same process I use in creating all of them. So let's just come back to this place. So now under primary states, now we want to create hover state, disabled state, danger state, and of course the default state. Now what did I do? I created a button first, which is this button. Shall we know how we created this button back? We know how we created this blue button, the first blue button. We don't know how we created the first blue button.
No.
Okay, we don't know how we created the first blue button.
We know.
Wait, does anybody not know how we created the first blue button? Tell me, let's know. If you know you don't know how we created the button, just tell me. You can say it in class so we can review.
I don't know.
You don't know. Now, how we created the button It's just the normal way we create buttons, you know. But what I did was I just typed here. I said button here. Now that's the text. Now I converted this to an auto layout because I want to work with auto layout. Now you can decide to create your buttons the normal way, which is just draw your rectangle and put in your text, you know, inside the rectangle. You understand? You can decide to do it that normal way. But I want to work with auto layout here, so I'll convert this text now to auto layout, you know, and then I'll just add a field to the auto layout. Then I'll change the field to blue, just the size I need, just the color I need. Then I'll change the font to white. I'll change the font to white. Then I'll just curve probably to 10 or maybe 4. 4. So I'll zoom in so we can see my system well. So now this is a button. I've created this button. Do you understand how I created this button now? Do you understand how I created? Trying to explain how variants work. I said for a button to have a variant, it has to have a second state. Variant is like, I can say something like variant black and white now. White is the variant of black, or black is the variant of white. Understand? Because if anything is not white, it could be black. So to do that, or to work with variants, you know, we have to convert this button to a component. So I'll select this button now and say create component, or click on this to create component from it, or you can right click on it and say create component. Right? I've converted this button to a component. Now we need to add a variant of this button. Now to do that, you see this diamond icon at the top here with the plus symbol inside of the diamond. Just click on it, you know, to add a variant to it. So all I just did was I adjusted it like this, you know, adjusted it, you know, then I just drag this to this side. Now what I want to do is I want all the primary states, that's the sub-primary states, to be here, then all the outline states to be here, and then all the other rounded states to be under. So I'll have like 3 different states. So now I want this to be my default, then I want this to be my hover button. Now the moment you add a variant, you will see property here. Okay. So the moment you add a button, the moment you add a variant, you will see the property, the current variant bar will be activated. Now here we can determine the properties, like we can create different properties and we can add different variants under each property. Are you with me now? Are you with me?
Yes, continue.
So now I want to add under this primary state. So what I'll do is I'll just change this to primary state. That's what I'll do now. So to do that, I can just click on this icon, this edit icon, sorry. I can just double click there and then I'll change it to primary state. Right? So then under this primary state, I'll leave this one as default. Then this other variant, I'll change it to hover state. So if I click on that other variant, I'll see variant 2 activated. Then I can change to hover state. Then to show that this is actually existing, or this is a variant, is a variant of this under this state, I'll just have to change the color to just show that okay, this is a variant actually. So to do that, I'll just click on it, come to the color section, and change. Maybe I'll just lighten up the color a little bit. Right? So this is the hover state. So I'm done. So the next state now, based on what we wrote there, is the disabled state and the danger state. So I'll just duplicate this, right? I just press Ctrl D. So let me do the disabled state. So something to be disabled, it means that it's not highlighted. So I'll just change it to like something that looks dull to show that it's not highlighted. Then I'll change the feel of the write-up to probably a dull color as well. Yes. Now I've achieved the disabled state. Now I want to add the danger state. Now these are just the states that I've decided that okay, this is what I'm going to be working with. If you're not going to be working with it in your UI, you don't need to create them. You understand? But most of the times when you're working on a full project, like in your personal project that is like a full project, you're going to be needing all these buttons that will be existing in different states. Now there are case scenarios that you might not know which button to create. Now what I usually advise is just check online, usually check in the community, Figma community. You can search button design system, so you see the different states they have, and then probably you can just recreate those ones and then you use it to start your own, like just have it as a start. So as you're using them, you'll be getting more familiar with it. But make sure you know how to do it. Don't just go and pick something from the community and then you start using them. So that's why we are teaching this stuff, so you actually know how to develop it. So you use, like, you can see, like in this one I showed you guys, where is it again, sir? It's like I deleted it. Okay, in this one I showed you guys, you can just bring something like this. So you can use it to have a few. So here they only have like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 different states. But under that 4 different states, they have like up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They have like up to 15 variants under a particular state. So that's dependent on what they are doing. You get? So it's just for you. So now that was how we created those buttons. Do you understand how we created the buttons now? Do you understand how we created the buttons now?
Yes.
Precious, do you understand? Are you with me, Precious? Taiwo, do you understand? Ahmed, do you understand? This one I'm not hearing anybody. Can you guys hear me?
I understand.
I still what you're saying.
Mirabel, do you understand?
Yeah, I do. I do understand.
Okay. Shemela, do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Alright, so Precious, I didn't hear your voice again. I don't know if Precious is still on the call. Precious and Taiwo. Well, let's move on. So that's how we've created these buttons. So I was just trying to show you guys. So if I bring this button now and drag it out, let's just say it's on a project, I can actually toggle between those different variants that I've created. So on that primary state, because this is a primary button, I can toggle between different states that it's existing on. So that's just it. Now let's finish up with the other states. Now I want to create my primary state. I want to create the outline state. Now how do I do that? I just Ctrl Z. I want to create the outline states first. I like doing outline under primary, then all rounded. Now let me create the outline state. Remember that the outline state now is now a new property. Are you guys with me? Remember that this is property. Under property we have different variants. So we've decided that primary state will be our first property. Now we want to add a new property. Now to do that, you see the plus icon here. When I click on it, I'll click on variants, and it will ask me what do I want to name the property. I will now say I want to name it outline, and then I'll create the property. Mind you, before you create a new before you add like the outline variant, like before you add another variant so that it will be existing in another property, make sure you've already created that property. So as you're adding that variant now into that property, now it's registering on that property. I'm not sure you guys understood what I said, but what I'm trying to say is, for instance, now I want to create the outline state now, where people complain to me, they were